Okay, so what we're working on today. At the moment I'm looking at stairs. I have the core geo actually set up within Unity, and I just thought to myself I'd go ahead and make a video blog or video log on some of the steps that we're looking to take to deliver this bit of work. Now the core geo is already there. It's been there for a few months now, but I need that geo that's been generated, i.e. this stairs that you're seeing here, to go across into Unity. So I've not documented what that should look like just yet. I do have the ability to do things like rails. So if I select this here, just drill in and have a look on what we've got here. This here is the concept of a railing, right? So within Houdini, I've set this up in such a way that if I draw a railing curve, what we've defined within the actual tool itself, it will not only generate the railing, but it also break through the geo to expose the internal elements of the level, right? So what I also have is this principle of, well, the stairs. However, unlike what we're doing here in Unity, which each one of these pieces of geo has a corresponding point, and we're doing something called instancing or point instancing. So if I have a point here, for example, one of these blocks will actually come through and take up space within the level. And if you've got an entire level being generated like that, then what you end up with is what you're seeing right now. So what I want to do is within Houdini, actually have the stairs be instanced by points. So there's a couple ways I could go about that. I could use this geo as it stands here now, which is going to give me a set of stairs plus the collision mesh, because that's how it's been coded so far. But I need it to follow the point instancing workflow. So that being geo means that I'd need to have the geometry generated and brought across into Unity the same way the rest of the actual points are brought across within a point soup, as an example. And then by the end of that exercise, I can then have prefabs generated within Unity for the stairs, for the railing, and for the landing. And then as that geo gets transferred across into Unity, the stairs will actually end up where it needs to be. So just to put that into perspective, so right now this is the stairs geo. Let's just turn off the points. And as you can tell, you can see all the different points with their description for what's actually supposed to be showing up within the level. And the geo that you're seeing there is the collision geo. So let me just go down to the bottom of the actual graph that's been built up over the last couple of months. And so we're gonna ghost the others. Right. So here's the same thing that we just showed you that's in Unity, and this is what it looks like. Okay, so you can see the railings, you can see the floor, you can see the different levels that are there, and I can just go down and right now that's a normal map on the floor, but this is what's been built up within Unity based on the logic that we've already put in. And then again, you have the railings. So let's find where I've got the concept of the actual stairs. So we've got to do a fair bit of cleanup at part of the workflow. That's way too much data. Let me switch that off. Okay. So I'm supposed to have over here the actual stairs. but that's only going to be in collision geometry format. So I'll just highlight that section there. So this here is point instancing. So even in Houdini, I didn't hand place those bits of geometry. It's the points that have the instancing reference and then brings that through. So for the collision geo, here you go. Got each one of the stairs being placed, the platform collision geo, and the railing collision geo. So just want to note what I'm actually going to be working on today is, let's just go ahead and put down the checklist. So generate points for stairs, geometry, for the railing, for the platform, let's just have a look on what we've got here. So there's a platform, the stairs, the railing, and also the opening. So here, if I rock back over to this side, you're going to see that we've not actually removed the block for this section here, right? So that needs to have an opening. So whether or not I'm going to have a door or just get rid of this specific piece of geometry, either way, I'll need to just make a point about that. Remove wall for door placement. Okay, so that's going to keep us busy. I'd like to think that I could get that done in a day, maybe maximum 2 days, but yeah, that's not something straightforward. So just the stairs, that might take an hour. The railing should be following the same workflow, and the platform. So the idea here will be that I'll generate the base geometry for a single stair. The railing will have a left and right side, and then the platform, I'll have one of those as geometry objects, which will be migrated across into Unity, and then I'll have a reference for those being generated to go into the point soup. So just to give you an idea as to what that might look like, we've got this principle of a geometry spreadsheet here, and this is showing all the different points. So here you go. So the railing, the tiles, and that's only for sections that are using them. So right now, this is showing both the collision geo and also the points themselves. And so it's just to add to this point soup, which it sounds a lot more complicated than it is, but once you actually have the base workflow, then it should just kind of work. All right, so we're going to leave it there for now, and hopefully by close of play today, there'll be no more distractions, and I should have the results to show for an upload tomorrow. Right? Okay, we're going to leave it there for now. Update to follow. Right, okay, so within this Python node, I'm currently looking at the configuration, making sure that the attributes are going to get the right values for both the type and the path to where the geometry is. This is important because if it doesn't have the path, then it's not going to know what to instance. But then it became apparent that while doing that, I've not set up the normals for the point, and what I get from the normal is the ability to have a direction. So it's XYZ value, and that will give me some kind of a relative vector by which to offset the point, making sure it's heading in the right direction. So yeah, by going in and just changing the translation of the base geometry, I now have the ability to have the the actual geo pointing in the right direction. So as you could see, the placement, even though it was offset for all of them by the same value. So just by tweaking the creation of the geometry, I then got the points to point in the right direction. Now that was a lazy way of doing it. It's almost like you could say I'm getting lucky, but the steers only have two orientations. It's either going to be going east to west or north to south, right? So just by flipping the geo, it's a quick win. Unfortunately, when later on you're going to see that we don't have the same kind of luck when we come to the railings, because the railings could have a full north, south, east, west configuration, or left, right, top, bottom type setup. So I'm going to need to make some adjustments to the creation code, and also to the orientation of the normals to make sure that they're oriented correctly. At some point it kind of felt like I was fighting this, but that's more because I've just been away from things for a while. So I moved up to my current location maybe about a month and a half ago, and then it kind of took about a month to settle in. And then the governments for all the countries in the planet Earth decide to shut down the entire planet. Like, this is not documented anywhere in recorded history, but yeah, I think everybody else out there, you're all living through the same story, so we'll just continue. So what we got here now, I'm looking at the collision geo for the Stairs. And again, this has been here now for a few months, again because I've not been looking at it, and to a certain degree I'm happy with it, but right now I'm kind of discovering that I've got a problem. I've got my steers intersecting the upper level geometry, and it's not taking into account the required offset. And here I'm also discovering that even though I'm using instancing to get the railings in as well, yeah, it's not as straightforward as just flipping the geo, because the offset doesn't seem uniform. Now that's what I'm gonna be showing you how I resolve that. But again, this is taking days. So if you recall, we started off the sprint on Monday. We're halfway into the week here now, and how can I say, a bit distracted with all the COVID-19 news that's going on, and jumping and checking out what's going on LinkedIn. Hey, well, I'm on the same planet as you, so this is just what we have to deal with. Looking at things now, I've just gone ahead and done a translation, moving the rotation to by 90 degrees. And from what I can see here, that would have won, because when I actually go to look on the internals here, because I can see the upper level railings, but because it's being generated in a routine, so it's within a loop, so I go from the bottom section. As I loop through, I'll then flip the railing into each one of its directions. Fortunately, I'm only going up one level, but because it's a procedural routine, and ideally you want to know that once you've done this, you can use the same what we call a SOP. I want to be able to use the same railing SOP wherever I'm going to use railings, right? So it's a bit disjointed. So I've got a steer SOP. So as you can see here, I've got steer corner generator, and within there I've got the steer being generated, and with the lower level I'm generating the actual railings. And there you can see at the lower level it's flipped backways, so it's almost just like one solid piece of geometry, although it's functions, loops and logics are generating this. It's just how it is. And the reason that it's come about like this is because, well, I've coded the base configuration to work with geo, so it was generating a geo and I was happy with the geo. The workflow when you're working with points have normals, points have positions, And if you're coding it, as you're coding it, you would have picked up that there was something kind of wrong. So now I'm just investigating to see just how bad things are. I can see the upper levels lining up pretty nicely, but the start level has got a totally wrong offset. And essentially both the upper level and the lower level, they're facing in the same direction, which as you can see is incorrect. So I'm also discovering that, hey, I'm not kind of blowing away the wall when I get to the upper level, and I'm not blowing away the wall at the lower level. Now what I do is I put a point at the location that I think that the wall's gonna be, so that I can then isolate it and delete any kind of geometry or any points that are in that vicinity, so that will become available space to actually traverse. Now, a lot of this is smoke and mirrors, remember. We've got the platform separate to the railings, separate to the stairs, separate to the walls. And I've only got points to tell me where these things need to be located. Now, it's not complicated. It's just not normal that you'd have generated geometry and then made a last minute decision to say, look, I want everything to work based on point instancing. But it's better to take the hit up front and get it right, because again, you don't know how many levels you could have. You could have 10 levels, you could have 100 levels, and as long as you get it right for one configuration, ideally, hopefully, it should just flow right through and you don't have to think about this later on down in production. So right now I'm just stepping through and just trying to get my bearings before I just start hacking away at the different nodes. You know, if everything else was working, the last thing you want to do is make a last minute change and then start scratching your head and trying to think, well, it was working before, why does it stop working? So just doing a bit of investigation now and just getting a feel for where things were, what node does what, before I go in and start tackling the placement of the railings. And again, you know, if you're coming from tools like Maya or Max, where you actually manually place your geometry a lot of the times, unless you're writing scripts, you know, like with Python or mail scripting or something, you might be looking at this as like, hey, wouldn't it just be easier just modeling some of these details? And again, it comes down to the principle of what you're doing is procedural. So the reason you work with tools like Houdini is so that you have the ability to work almost like you're working with your construction history. So within Maya, you can see construction history, but you can't do anything with it really. I mean, you can, you know, rip out nodes, but you better be careful how you're doing that. Whereas here, you're working with the construction history, and so you can chop and change and do whatever you like, providing that, you know, it makes sense what you're doing, obviously. And it should just flow, and then you can put that in a loop and expand it as much as you like. So providing you get your routines set up in the correct order, you should be able to get the benefits of those implementations as you're going through. So again, still trying to isolate and figure out where I'm making my changes, or where I need to make my changes. You know, you can see clearly that the instancing is taking place for the stairs. It's even taking place for the railings themselves. There's some things I'm not happy with about the actual railing configuration, but I'll tackle that later on down, as you'll see. But for now, I'm looking at it saying, hold on there. The collision geo looks perfect. It's fine. I can see that if I get that into Unity, I'll get my navigation mesh working with this really, really well, right? The problem is you can't just go from the floor geo and step straight up onto the stairs, because you'll have that intersection into the main geometry, which is not currently visible because again we're using the points for the geo, and what you're looking at now is just the collision geo. And so it's like, well, I'm going to need to make some kind of a change, and how quickly is it to make a strategic change without breaking what's already there, and still have everything functional. So it's just, the due diligence, going through, having a look what's there before making any kind of change. So right now we're kind of moving into semi-modeling phase. Probably want to do some extrusions here on these edges. Now for something like this, I could have easily done the modeling within Maya. It would have been it would have been a lot more straightforward to go into Maya and tweak this. But again, not wanting to have that kind of back and forth between the tools. So a lot of it, when I come to do modeling within Houdini, it's more the idea that, you've done your training, but you want to expand it. You want to get that experience solidified. So think about a surgeon that goes off and studies for 8 years. When he gets to the hospital, he wants his surgery time, and he starts kissing ass to make with the main doctors to make sure that he can get some surgery time in. Now the good thing is, I'm in charge of whatever it is that I'm building here now, so it's like, okay, fine, I've got to get some poly modeling in. It is what it is. Let's just jump in there and do what needs to be done, tweak what needs to be tweaked. And the thing is, over time you get the benefit of doing that. So again, you're increasing your experience. It's all about that 10,000 hour rule. The longer you spend with a tool, the more experienced you become, and you can get the benefits of that experience. So right here now I'm adding an additional parameter. I can see that I'm going to want to extrude the platform ledge. Again, this is collision geo, so this is not something that the end user is going to see. It will facilitate the creation of the navigation mesh within Unity. It's just to support that workflow. Again, any one of the packages you're going into, if you're going to making your custom collision geo, this would feed into that. Even the stairs, I'm looking at stairs, and some people are like, why didn't you just use a single diagonal polygon going up as a ramp? Later on, when I actually come to work with the NPCs, I'm going to want the inverse kinetics on the knee joints and the ankles and the feet to be flush to the floor, right? So I don't want it to look like they're gliding in the air as they're walking up the stairs or running up the stairs. So I'm going to need to put in some work to make sure that the characters actually look like they're stepping on the stairs. And so again, I want to make sure that I'm using the best nav mesh / collision geo going in to support that process. Again, one of the things that you need to take into account when you get into Unity is making sure that your navigation meshes are set to static. Not your navigation meshes, sorry. Your actual geo, because the routine that's going to be used to make the navigation mesh, it's going to be looking on the geo. Obviously the collision geo is going to be more for physics. And then what we have here is going to support that. This is a custom collision mesh. Actually, I want to look into at some point custom nav meshes. It's just more a case of this is a workflow that I understand that I need to be doing, and so I'm just sticking with it. So again, probably spending a bit more time than I would have liked to on this. I'm probably, one of the things you hate is having to do some rework, but I know that I have way too much geo at the moment for the railings, and so I'm going to try and simplify that. and just want to get in a good look and feel. But right now it's making sure that the base stairs, the workflow in terms of getting that in, getting the wall placement out, getting a door there, making sure that the collision geo, the door, the cutting out of the door, that feature is stable, and then making sure that some of the naming conventions that I use actually makes sense. So right now I'm saying something like the wall. It's a wall, but if you have a look on the path, it's pointing to window_2, because when I originally started, the vision was to have windows in those locations. But you know, it is what it is. You're doing indie dev, you gotta be a bit flexible, big pragmatic, you know, but the idea is that you've got whatever you're going to deliver. This is a tool that you're going to have to work with, and it'd be nice to know that, you know, in 6 months, in 12 months, in 2 years down the line, these routines are solid. You'd hope that whatever you did, you don't have to revisit. I mean, sometimes you do, but ideally you don't want to do that. So right now I'm putting the staircase platform offset, and I'm noticing that as I'm moving it, the platform's moving, but the collision geo's not moving, and the points for the stairs aren't moving. So you see that curve that's for the stairs, it's kind of offset in a strange way, and I'm just trying to get my head around what change needs to go in where to support that. Again, something like this, if you were in Maya or Max, it would have been like, you know, 5-10 minutes. It would have been a minute to just like get this part of the platform extruded, and you'd have been happy. But as you can see, there's a process, and the process when you're doing procedural workflows, you just stick with the way how the tool works. Yeah. So I'm going in and having a look on where I'm doing the translation, and or at least setting up of the core geo, and trying to think if I can cheat and get away with a quick win. In the end, it's not about that. It's more the case that you need to actually make sure this thing works. So I did go in and just group the geometry correctly and get everything lined up. So right now I'm trying to get a simplified platform going. So as you're walking up the stairs and you're going to take that corner, I want to make sure that this part is set up in with the basic functionality. Again, I may want to revisit some of this, and I may not. Right now the requirement for the stairs that I'm going to be using is for the NPC to be able to navigate from one level of the building to another level, and it's quite possible that the camera or the actual main player character might not ever need to traverse these areas. So even if I have more than one stairs, it's just to say, okay, that the NPCs can chase after the main character through these stairs to get to attack the character. But whether or not I want the NPC, the actual player, to be able to traverse these stairs, maybe not. But if I do, I'll probably want to put in a bit more sophisticated software, more sophisticated geo. And the reason being, if you look at a collision geo, if you're going to be firing a gun or something like that, and you want to be able to hit NPC character that's in the distance, the bullet would just go straight into the collision geo, right? So you probably want to simplify the collision geo, or take advantage of some of the features within Unity as far as like layers and things like that are concerned. But again, you know, I'm using Trello, documenting what's been done, what needs to be done, and I'm having fun at the same time. So here we're now in a later phase, and you can see that the staircase has been put further back. We still need to get, at this stage, the walls done, but I know that I've removed the walls. Hopefully that'll show up on the video. If it hasn't, the bottom line is today's Thursday, and I know that you know, as far as the sprint for the week was concerned, these were the main features that need to go in. And yeah, it's been a productive week. Probably spent way more time listening to government tell us how they're trying to destroy the planet. But you know, hey, it is what it is. It's interesting times. I think it's a Chinese proverb to say, may you live in interesting times. I'm not sure if that's a curse. You know, a lot of strong opinions about what's going on right now, especially after watching the London Olympics, where, you know, we had a preview of the dress rehearsal for the UK coming out. We have the NHS being previewed. And then we have like this Grim Reaper character standing up in the center of the nurses, like a giant Grim Reaper there to kill the people. And I'm thinking, that was what, 2012? And it's 2020. You couldn't make this stuff up. So there we go. We got the main geo in. And let's move into the next chapter. Right, so that's it for this week's sprint. It's been quite an event trying to, you know, get back up to speed after a couple of weeks just doing 100 other things apart from doing any R&D or coding or modeling or anything like that. But managed to get the assets working the way I wanted to, at least for where we are in the current pipeline. And yeah. So we're going to stop things here now and pick things up next week. Thanks for watching.